Hey, everybody, welcome to the Rooftop Leadership Podcast. And this is another one of our Afghanistan episodes. You know, we've been doing these since the collapse of Afghanistan. I think it's kind of a haze for me. Usually when I do these, I'm walking down my driveway ranting about something and then sending it over to Wes on my phone who edits it. But it has, in like, I know, it has been such an outlet for me, though, and no kidding, to be able to talk to you as, you know, I step through this debacle that has been the withdrawal from Afghanistan and continue to be out over my skis and just trying to figure out what to do next. The ability to be connected with you and talk about the Afghanistan reality has just been cathartic. You know, what we're doing now is we are, with Task Force Pineapple, the hero's journey, is we are blessed because we're able to put out a story at a time when the nation's 500,000 plus Afghan veterans, U.S. Afghan veterans, and Iraqi war veterans are really struggling. When Vietnam War veterans have watched Saigon fall twice now, it seems. And when so many people in our nation are watching this thing unfold and they're just not clear on what it is that actually happened over these 20 years and why honoring this promise to our Afghan partners is so important. Others just feel a sense of betrayal and loss and sadness. And I'm grateful, to be quite honest with you, at this point in my life, because I have these three people that are on this podcast with me. Three people who are truly my family and who came to my shoulder at a time in my life when I don't think it could have been much darker, and where I felt a need to tell a story that had never really been told, and as Aim Livingston says, in a voice that had never been heard. I didn't know exactly what it was, but it was a story about a Green Beret, an elegy, a lament for the dead, a story that was about a Green Beret, but it was about every warrior. It was about every military family that had fought, not as the first in, like you see in the movies, but the last out, the men and women who go back day after day, month after month, year after year, and deploy and endure back at home. That story I just felt like had not been told from the stage in a way that would land on people's chest cavity and they would have an emotional experience. I was inspired by the play Tracers by John DeFusco, who in 1985 with Vietnam veterans produced and performed a play about the Vietnam War. And I thought, man, if we could do that around the Afghan War. And these three people right here helped me do it. They helped me write it. They helped me bring it to its feet. They helped me tell it time and time again. We trained all over the country. We endured our own struggles and our own sadnesses and our own tensions, but we truly became a family along with our support team that traveled with us to 16 cities. And on November 11 of this year, it's going to become a film. It's going to be released on Veterans Day at lastoutfilm.com for free to help inform Americans on the cost of this Afghan war and to better understand it and to validate the journey of those that fought it and their families. And today I'm joined by the cast of Last Out, and I am so deeply honored. It's been a while since we've been together. I think maybe even since we finished filming in February of this year was the last time we were together. And my hands are shaking a little bit because I love these people dearly right here. And so what I thought we would do is I'm going to introduce them, and I just want to spend time with them, and I want us to be able to talk about things around the play and the film and ask each other questions. And then this is your chance on this podcast to just kind of spend that time with us. And hopefully it'll inspire you to watch the film once, watch it again, and share it. So on the screen here and on the podcast with us, if you're listening, is Master Sergeant retired Lenny Bruce. Lenny is a former Green Beret. He is an accomplished actor, and he plays multiple roles in the film, but most importantly, he plays my character Danny's best friend, Kenny Suggins, who came down from Valhalla to help Danny ascend and know peace. And he also plays Danny's surrogate father, an Afghan elder named Malik John. So Lenny's joining us. And Lenny served in combat in both Iraq and Afghanistan. We also have Brian Bachman. Brian spent multiple tours in combat in the 82nd Airborne as an infantryman. He deployed to Iraq. He deployed to Afghanistan. And another accomplished actor living in Florida. Brian and I have been friends a very, very long time. He was one of the original guys that helped me get the play on its feet. And then finally, we have Aim Livingston. Aim, in addition to coming from a military family, has spent her entire life in theater. A performer at Disney for many, many years. And also, she laughs. And also, she's our director. She plays Lynn, Danny's wife, in an astounding way. She also plays an intelligence officer. She plays an operator from Valhalla, and she was our director. And she really brought this show and got it on its feet. So I hope those introductions were okay, because I'm just honored to have you guys here. So welcome. Lenny, we're going to start with you, man. What was it about the story and the project that drew you to it?
Well, first it was us getting connected through the SF network. That was interesting.
Yeah.
And so I got a hold of you, and you sent me you told me a little bit about the story, and I was like, that's pretty interesting. And then you sent me the script, and then you made me cry like a baby. And then I called you back, and I told you like I'm reading like a lot of my life here, and so to me, it was an amazing read. Wasn't easy to get through. I was choking up a lot. I mean, but it was a page turner for sure. But like, it stops your heart a couple times when you see some of the things that you experienced or lived through in a script. And I got the chance to audition for it, and you screwed up and you picked me. So now you're stuck with it.
Oh man, you killed it. Aim, when you talked a lot to me in the early days when you agreed to be the director and to play the role of Lynn. You talked a lot about the power of story and connection in dark times and the role that it could play. And that always stuck with me. And I think as people are watching this and listening to this now, wondering what this film holds for them. Could you talk a little bit about that, about kind of the enduring power of story and connection and your perspective on it?
I think connection is the one thing that unites us all. Whether regardless of your background or, where you come from, what you believe in, where you live, it's the most important thing. And someone said at some point the opposite of addiction is connection, and I couldn't agree more. It's vital in theater. It's vital in life, but I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. You were just talking, and then just
Got grief brain going on.
No, I got it. And then just the what story holds for us as far as value in dealing with difficult times.
Why is story important in difficult times?
Yeah.
Story is important during difficult times because it validates, and I also think we're here to witness each other's lives.
Yeah.
And that is connection. And that's exactly what this story does. It witnessed what you guys did, and what countless veterans and their families did. And it's almost like, maybe it's cheesy to say, but it's a time capsule of your service. And when I first met you all, I'm like, oh, true superheroes, which is cheesy as that sounds, I do believe that. I always will. What you all did is It's priceless. And I think this story, that's why it's so important that we don't forget. And we need story. We need connection now more than ever, I think.
Yeah, I think as we reemerge from 2 years of a pandemic, I mean, that's the kind of thing that can help us make that move. Brian, you talked about, one of the things that you talked about before was what this film means to veterans that you saw on the road. Can you talk a little bit about that? So if, folks that are listening right now or thinking about watching Last Out, what are some of the things that you saw and heard from the veteran perspective as we performed the play around the country?
Well, I think one of the biggest compliments that we're getting when we're touring around is just a veteran saying that we got it right in a sea of military content that doesn't get it right, with a audience that is the military audience that, man, if you miss one detail, one button
Yeah.
too much is buttoned, the hat is just a little off, it takes you right out of the story. So even though the message of that piece of content is to validate those warriors or whatever it is they're trying to do, the veteran has a hard time connecting to it because they can see that this isn't real. When they watch what we did, it's a story about warriors told by warriors. So we got it right the whole way through. I think that's something that people are going to enjoy watching.
Let's just stay on that, Brian. What are some of the, I guess, in the current context of what we're going through right now, what are some of the themes in the film, in the story that really stuck with you throughout, that were enduring for you?
When you watch this film, it's going to look like we made it after the fall of Afghanistan. It's like we called it. It's like Scott called it in the writing, but we didn't. We made it before Afghanistan fell. There's going to be a lot of people. There probably is a lot of people sitting around who don't know how to feel about what happened with the abandoning of the local populace. This story is going to show that you're not the only one that feels like that. I mean, it doesn't tie a pretty bow on it. It's not trying to show you a sunny side of it. It's just telling the story of it, because I almost said a bad word just now, but I think that
You can say it.
because gosh darn it, the least we could do is talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Going right into that, Lenny, you played in the film and on the road, you played Malik John, a Pashtun elder who my character, Danny, a Green Beret sergeant, befriends, but not without some tension in the beginning, as often was the case when we operated in that country. Those friendships were earned through struggle, but ultimately a very, very dear friendship between Danny and Malik John. When you look at what's happening in the country now, and you look at what's happened to the Afghan people and to the relationships that so many of us had with them, what comes to your mind, having from the film, that stands out in the portrayal of that Afghan elder?
Wow, that's a good question, and I'll try to be short as I can with that. But it's a pretty deep question. Danny and Malik John are like a classic pairing of people who come from two different cultures, two different worldviews, who find middle ground and have the ability to literally change their worlds, both of their worlds, that of the American soldier and that of the Afghan people. Of course, he's abruptly cut down, but the bond that is formed between those two, and just the United States Army or United States Marine Corps private who was working with their partner force guys for so many years, and now they were torn apart, and the love is still there, but they can't connect, and the desperation between a lot of people are feeling a lot of desperation right now, on both sides of the ocean. And I mean, the connection and the relationship that Danny and Malik John have or form, I think everyone, everyone in the world should see that connection, because it happens every day. And but the bond is so strong. Like there's hardly words to describe it, but just seeing those two will give you, or many people who might watch this or haven't watched it yet, a greater understanding of what was lost there during the fall of Afghanistan. And it's a beautiful thing.
I think the last part you just said is so true, is that if you really want to, if you're watching and you want to better understand why so many veterans are coming out of the woodworks to try to help their Afghan partners find safe passage any way that they can, and why so many of them can't hang up the phone, after an 80-day 911 call with no relief. And why so many of our veterans are sending their own 401ks over to Afghanistan. It's because of the way that Lenny portrays Malik John and the relationship with Danny. And my promise to you is, if you watch that, you'll get it at an emotional level. Pivoting over to you, Aim, you had a similar burden, right? I mean, and I laid this one squarely at your feet, but it was, as I wrote, and by the way, I wrote the initial, but you all are the ones who collaborated and elevated it to the next level. As we gave ourselves permission to do that on the road and write and rewrite, which I will always be. That's what I'm most proud of, is how we collaborated to just continue to evolve this story after talkbacks. But you did have an initial burden, Aim, which was to tell the story of the military family, to really do, and that, I've done a lot of digging, and that's really never been done to the degree that you did it. What was that like, and how did you approach that? How did you take that on over the course of this project, which was years?
Well, I'm a huge believer in asking why and digging deeper into the character's backstory, and I think that's true. You can relate that to, what you and Lenny were just talking about. If, you can look at something and judge it, but if you ask the why and you dig deeper, you will always find the heart. And specifically, playing Lynn, it's like, okay, well, this is a military wife. Awesome. Tough lady. She's the glue. She's the heart. But what else? And digging deeper and deeper, and it's about talking to the people who live it, and taking what I've lived through and what my mom and my grandmother, and taking their stories and infusing their voices, and all the women that I met through our time together, and all the little tidbits that they shared with me. It was all infused in there, and I think it, it's what built the backbone of Lynn. It's all those tiny little moments with these amazing women that I was honored to have. That's where her truth is, because it's their voice. And I don't know if you guys remember, but when we were in North Carolina, I was more nervous for that show than when we opened off Broadway, because I was performing, we were all performing for the people who did it, who the people,
Yeah.
like, they're, it's like Brian was saying, if something is off, they're like, that's bullshit. That's, disconnect. But that Monty was standing next to me, and she would always give me a little hug or a high five right before places, and she like stormed out, and I thought I was gonna vomit because I was so nervous, and she walked by and I was like just white and freaking out, and I told her later, I'm like, I almost puked because it was about honor, and I want to honor those women, I want to honor those family members, by telling their truth.
Yeah, well, you did. And the fact of the matter is, I've talked to a lot of family members and Gold Star family members, right, who we also spent a lot of time with. And, it's given them such comfort at this time, because they're asking themselves, what was it, what was the point? A lot of family members are struggling, particularly, but it's just been amazing to hear from our Gold Star families that we met on the road, and them come back and thank us for the story, because it gives them comfort at a time when otherwise they might be feeling very alone. What was that like, Aim, being on the stage with those Gold Star families before the shows?
The first thing that comes to my mind is just cherished ground, just precious moments, as cheesy as that sounds. I think there's things in our lives that force us to be present, that force us to leave all of the stress and what ifs, and I need to prep for this, and and it's like the vacuum. And I think that's what theater does. But those moments, those 5-10 minutes we spent with those people, it was a vacuum moment where everything else just fell deaf on our ears, and it's like meeting your greatest heroes. I mean, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
And hearing their stories, and just letting them know that we tell this story every time for them. And it was a huge emotional roller coaster, I think, for all of us, when they would just share, and then maybe give us something for the wall, and then the ceremony, which it became, of usually Lenny taking it, and them the handoff of the trust, and then Lenny taking it to the wall and placing it in a cherished area, and them trusting us with their memory. And it was very ceremonial, I think.
Yeah.
It was incredible. That's the word I use. Incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, the development of the Wall of Honor as a living memorial was something I don't think any of us saw coming. I mean, I don't think any of us, planned for that, but it sure did become that. So I'm going to go to Brian next, but Lenny, just a heads up, you're on deck, and I want you to ask the next question after I ask Brian. You come up with a question, because I feel like I'd rather some of you all ask some questions of each other, and I just, we this is a cherished moment for me. We don't get that many moments together like this, and I think just an opportunity for each of us to ask a few questions about the project. But Brian, I do want to ask, because I always think it's cool when you riff on this, but you played 11 characters in the film, and everybody except me played multiple characters and did an amazing job. I know I was slacking, but Brian, how did you approach that, and what was your how did you manage to clarify and create and develop that many characters over time? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
I'm muted.
you go.
That's real. That's a loaded question, because this is going to get real artsy real fast if we go down this road. I have this great teacher that says, you want to put the why before the how. How does this character, how is this scene supposed to go? Instead of asking why these things are happening. AIM talked a lot about taking people back to their childhood in order to understand why these people are the way they are. When you play the bad guy in something, you can't play the bad guy. Otherwise, it becomes cheesy, twirly mustache man, you know? So taking Smith back to finding out what his inciting incident was that sent him down the path that he went down, and then trying to feel what that feels like. It's one thing to then identify something about another person, and then asking, how could you do that? And it's another to say, what would make me do what they do? And that sort of starts to open up a window into these characters, to at least trying to start to understand and feel what they feel. So that way, Smith doesn't become the bad guy in his own story. He becomes the good guy. I think he's the bad guy, but when I do the prep work before the show, it's very much about finding out how he can become the good guy of his own story. We got to do some Alexander technique, which is a type of acting style, I guess you'd call it, and turning each of those characters into an animal. That was really helpful. When we did Buffalo, I taped all 11 animals to the wall in front of the mirror. And then I would just stare at each of them and try to see if I could find out how to become that animal physically, and allowing that to influence each character. I feel helped you differentiate who was who throughout the show when I would constantly switch back and forth. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's a big answer. That's a big
it
question.
is. But you know, what was really cool with you guys too was on the play, you know, you didn't change costumes. I mean, so you really had to differentiate in your physicality and tonality and how you did it. In the film, we had, you know, we did have the costume piece. There's one thing I want to share with you and AIM. You've never heard this, but you know, when I started working the pineapple thing, the task force pineapple thing, you wouldn't believe the number of veterans that called me, you know, asking to be involved in that. And we stood up a 501c3 around this thing. And I started sharing the film quietly with some of them who were just really going through a lot. One of them is a guy named Mike, and we've got this on video coming out pretty soon. But Mike and I have known each other since 2010. He's a civil affairs officer, multiple tours, lots of loss, lots of trauma. Wonderful, wonderful guy, wonderful dad and husband. And he has 3 kids. His oldest son, Duncan, who went, you know, was a little guy with the last time I saw him, you know, back in 2010. Well, Mike, you know, was so distraught after the fall of Afghanistan. He called me. He's like, please let me work with Pineapple. And he did. He literally put his business on hold. His wife took it over. In Fayetteville, a hot dog stand for veterans. He helps homeless veterans start businesses, like 3 hot dog stands. And his wife took it over, bless her heart, so that he could come work at Pineapple. Well, anyway, he went out to 29 Palms to see his son, Duncan, a Marine infantryman, brand new. And they watched the film together. And Mike had been wanting for a very long time, much like with my son, Cody, who's now an infantryman, had wanted to talk to Duncan about some of the harder things of combat, the harder things of loss, the harder aspects of leading warriors and losing warriors. But he couldn't figure out how to do it. He could never bring himself to talk to Duncan when Duncan would come home and leave. But they decided to watch Last Out together. And in the letter scene, Mike just broke down, and Duncan held him, and they ended up talking until 3 a.m. that night. And it was the first time that Mike had ever talked to his son about Afghanistan. And he got to tell him all of the things about his trauma and his guilt, so that Duncan could understand before it happened what is out there. And as a result of that, Duncan, as a fire team leader, is actually getting trauma front end work with all of his squad, resilience work. And I want to tell you to that because you need to understand what your hours and hours of work and sacrifice on this story. I mean, that's just one vignette. And it's as fresh as it gets, but it was that letter scene that opened all of that up.
Amazing.
You know, that scene really became its own living, breathing thing
Yeah.
where, and I'm sorry to the writer if he ever watches this, where we started to not even say the words that were in the script anymore. And
Yeah.
Aim and I just started talking to each other through rehearsals and then even during the show. And one of my favorite lines in that last scene is when she looks at Caden and Caden starts to cry and she goes to hug him. And it wasn't scripted and it's in the movie and it's became a part of the show like it was written. But I just said one time on stage, I miss him, Mama. And she said, I know, baby, but we have each other now, right? And that's not in the script. And it became part of the script just based off of two people who trusted each other enough to just let the other one see inside.
Yeah.
Take deep breaths and just believe in the story.
Yeah.
That kind of moment was born. And
Yeah.
how many times throughout the run of this show has that scene been talked about in talkbacks and whatnot? That's one of the scenes that resonates with people so much, is that final scene. And it was through, my goodness, 3 years, 2.5 years for all of us together, of just running the show over and over and over and never stopping, never stop asking questions about these characters in this story. And we got moments like that out of it. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we sure did. And if you're wondering about that when you watch the play, you're like, wait a minute. Well, that's because we changed the ending. Yeah, that shit happened. And you haven't seen it yet, but you will.
Oh yeah, so you got to watch it.
All right, Lenny, over to you.
All right. I could go a lot of different directions with my questioning here, but
It's okay.
I think I mean I would like to go back to actual us together, but I mean I think one of the greatest questions I could ask given the circumstances is not, and I guess I have to point this at Scott and Brian because they served over there. But I can circle back to AIM as well. But when you saw the helicopters, or I'm sorry, the C-141s, C-17, sorry, taking off, and people were falling from them, what did that make you feel when you saw that particular?
Here's what it meant for me. It actually, obviously horrific. And these were not primitive people, right? These were people who had lived in Kabul, who had experienced a life of some level of freedom and democracy, that were willing to, as my friend Lila Koastani says, they were willing to experience 30 more seconds of freedom in that wheel well or hanging onto that wheel than 30 years more of the Taliban. And to me, it was representative of what they valued and what was coming. I don't think it could have been more poignant and more obvious as to what was really at stake.
Brian?
when they were training us to go to combat, they told us this is what will happen when you get shot at. This is what you do. This is how you react to contact. But I don't know what was lost in translation, but the term IED is now a household term. Everyone
Mhm.
knows what that is. But nobody explained to me how violent and big IEDs really were, or I couldn't grasp what it was. And the first time I saw an IED go off, I felt the concussion. I turned and looked at it, and I just cranked my head up and watched. And I didn't know what to feel. I didn't know what to say. I was just in awe. It felt like that. I didn't know how to process it.
Right on. That's pretty powerful. Okay, AIM. I'm not sure if you saw that footage, but if you did, how did that make you feel? And if you didn't, um, just as someone who was in this play and understanding, the degrees of sacrifice that so many people have experienced, like something like that, the desperation. Um, if you did see it, how did you feel?
I mean, heartbroken is the first word that comes into my head. I don't know if that's the right word, but watching them cling to hope, to the last bit of hope, um, to the last bit of that relationship, and you can equate it to so many things in life, but when trauma is coming and the tsunami is coming, watching that, and we've all felt that, I think, in some level. It shatters your heart.
Absolutely. And I think, Scott, you opened it up very well. These are not primitive people, and I think that is a damn good point to make always. Things aren't what you seem, what they
No,
always seem. But
no.
the to me, and of course, what you said, Brian. Wow, yeah, my jaw was on the ground for quite a while.
It sure
Um,
does offer
yeah,
perspective when you
yeah,
see something like that.
yeah, and in just thinking of the degree of desperation that many people, Afghanistan being a great example, but across the world, Haiti, Mexico, uh, Northern Africa, uh, the things that they are willing to do to not go back,
Yeah.
like it just shows you how amazing the human being is. I mean, while these are terrible examples, freedom is far more important than oppression to the human spirit, and people will risk their lives for it.
And I think something else to that degree, Lenny, and I'll end on this one for it, is I believe that it really, to me, I came away from this with the realization that the real hero in this story is the Afghan people. And I truly believe that. I believe that what they've endured,
Amen.
what they risked to escape that oppression and that freedom, to find that freedom, is the stuff of legends.
Amen.
And this was stuff that I didn't really realize even in retirement. It was in this, and I have to say, a big shout out to our combat veterans who stepped into the breach in a moment when it didn't seem like anybody else was coming, and honored a promise that we made a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, and whether you suffered silently through that or whether you got on a phone or whatever it was, I was just very proud of our veteran population and how they tried to handle this because there was no good way to do it. Aim, anything that you would throw out as a question for the team, or anything that would be something you would want to pose that speaks to the project?
Sorry, I'm still
Hi,
on
Jimmy.
Lenny's question. Like, give me a second to marinate. Let me.
All right.
I got one.
Yeah.
I got one. Our show is heavy. These conversations are heavy.
Yeah.
A way we found to stay even keeled and continue to thrive on the road was through humor. And there was a lot of joking going on behind the stage, and at first glance that may rub you the wrong way if you're listening to this. How could you talk about such a serious topic and joke? Well, I will let you know that soldiers tell a lot of jokes when they're at war, and there's very few instances that are more high stakes than being in combat. And there is lots of joking that happens because I think that it's just innately in us to counterbalance the circumstances and try to control ourselves in a way that we can, which is through humor. So I guess my question to you all is, what is the funniest or most heartfelt, lighter side moment of the entire tour, that each of you experienced?
There's so many. The
There
first one that
are.
comes to my mind is Lenny Bruce.
I was going to
When,
say the same thing.
What do you do? What do you do?
When he was playing Malik John, and God bless Lenny and his dialect that it's tough. He didn't take a breath before that line, and all came out was ah, yeah! And he's sitting, Brian and I standing on the side of the stage watching Lenny, and then he realizing what he just did, and then Scott trying to control his laughter and still saying the scene, and I just looking over at Brian, and we can both were a little, it was like, and I remember holding in my laughter that my butt cheeks were hitting each other.
Aim and I deserve more credit for, we were on stage the entire show, and there's like a 25-minute period where I didn't move.
Yep.
And how much we learned to communicate with each other from across the stage just with our eyes, and how much tension we put in our faces or neck. We started having full-blown conversations at times while the show was going on. That was good. What about
That's
you?
one of my most favorite ones. There's
Oh,
so many.
me? The time that I forgot the necklace, and I had to give him I had to give him the prayer beads, and he rolled with it. He was like, "Yeah, all right."
But you put them on me. What did I say when you put them on?
Wait. We gotta set
it up.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you got to give it context.
In the show. Oh, go ahead. It's your show. Go ahead.
No. You go.
In the show, Kenny is taking Danny through memories of his life, and he's trying to find the thing he's holding on to so that way he can help him give resolution so he can ascend to Valhalla. And he decides, Danny hears a song from when he first met his wife in a bar. So Kenny is going to make him go to the bar by pulling out her necklace out of his pocket. And an actor, what's that old phrase? An actor prepares, I think is what it is. And you're supposed to check your props before the show. And Lenny, as Kenny, put his hand in his pocket, I'll get him. And he felt, and there was nothing in his pocket. And that's where this happened. You had a prop for a later scene, which is some prayer beads, and you pulled that out instead.
And then Aim goes, "Are those prayer beads?"
Is that what I said?
Yeah, you just called me out, but I mean, it was all right because you're like, you said something like, "I'll just hold them," or some shit.
I know I didn't put them on, but
No,
and his
no.
face, but he realized that he didn't
Yeah.
have the necklace too, and it just dropped.
Yeah.
And he's like,
Yeah.
I think that the line is, "Well, shit, how about this?" And he was like, "Well, shit, how about this?"
Well, how about it?
A similar situation happened with you, Scott.
Yes.
Early in play with the ring, and it became a joke in the show.
It did. So you guys drug me out like we always start, and you dragged me out because the opening scene is Danny in combat, and you guys as teammates all dragged me out. Well, I would always keep the ring in my front pocket, and Aim's like, "You don't need to keep that ring in your front pocket. It's gonna fall out." I'm like, "Listen, I've been carrying shit in my front pocket in combat for years. I know what I'm doing." She's like, "I'm telling you, it's gonna fall out." Sure as hell. I think it was even that when she said that, like, you guys, and it fell out. And when it came time to propose, I go on a knee and I reach in my pocket to pull out the ring. It's not there. And it's like the minute she saw the look on my face.
I did.
And, you know, she's got years of experience doing that. I have zero. And so I'm like, and so I remembered what she said, which is just when things go wrong, just focus on your partner. Just focus on your scene partner, and they'll take care of you. So I look at her, and she knows. Like, she's looking at me like, "Okay, asshole, we'll talk about this later." But she's looking at me, and I go, and I can't even afford a ring.
I think I made that face.
I think she first said, "You got a ring," because that line then stayed in the show forever.
Yeah, it
And
did.
then she said, "You got a ring."
Yep.
now-
Just calling me out. But and we got through. We went. No one really. I mean, other than like Monty, my wife, who had seen and Cooper, you know, who had seen the play like a million times. They picked up on it, but nobody else knew. Like, no one else even thought anything about it.
I got a story about Cooper when we're ready for that one.
Oh, my son Cooper came to every show.
Every show. And he always sat front and center.
Yep.
And during a scene, Danny and his commander, who turns out to be kind of a bad guy, decide that they're going to look over a village, and Captain Smith ends up dropping ordnance on the village, leveling it because he thinks bad guys are in it. And that scene is super intense, and we're very tight. And he's on the radio, and he's trying to get Danny to be quiet. And he's looking at the radio, and he's trying to get the ordnance dropped. And a cell phone goes off. And in the darkness, I can feel where the cell phone is. And I just do this.
Super cool.
Right? And you can't quite see through the darkness when you're on stage. If you've never been on a stage and those lights hit you, you can almost not see the audience for most of the time. And my eyes focused, and there's Cooper, who does this. He goes, he's like, "It's not me. It's not me." But he came up to me after the show and he says, "I thought you were going to kill me." Because I tried to stay in that moment of Smith trying to kill these people, and I just looked at your young son with that intent on my face, and he just sat back in his chair.
Oh my God! And he actually ended up being in the film, and you know, was making a little bit fun of himself, because if you watch the film, you'll see Cooper in there. He is the presiding officer who presents the flag to AIM, and he had one line, and it's on behalf of a grateful nation. And he was kind of, you know, bashing on himself. He's like, "Well, I won't forget that line, you know, because it's so important." But sure enough, the lights came up, and what did he do, AIM? Forgot the line.
It happens. It still happens to me.
Yeah.
It happens.
Aim, any question that you want to throw
Well,
out there?
did Lenny answer
Oh, Lenny didn't go. Sorry.
the silly
humor.
moment?
I did.
You did?
Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
When I forgot the necklace.
The
You
necklace.
can't take mine.
No, that's
That's
No.
cheating.
that.
No, he added the necklace. Remember, he added the prayer beads.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I got another one for you then, guys. This is Ian Scott. We're in the climax of these two bad guy and good guy coming at each other's. You know, they're gonna go at it, and Scott forgets his lines in the middle of the show. Is what I thought as we're doing this scene, and I say, I don't give a poop about what you have to say, Danny Patton. And then I say it again. I said, I don't give a poop about what you have to say. And I thought I said it the second one. And he says his line to me, and I look at him, and he doesn't say anything. And how long was that pause, guys?
Oh
Had
my
to have
God!
been
It was
a
like
minute.
3. It was a long time, man. It was
wasn't-
really uncomfortable.
It was at least 15 seconds,
Right. It
which
felt
doesn't
like,
sound long, but it is.
and I'm staring at him, and I'm not like, oh no, I forgot my line. I'm thinking, what's your what line have you forgotten, and what can I say to help you out right now? Because the next thing that the scene does comes from you. You have to move the scene forward right now.
Yeah.
So all I'm doing is sitting there, and I'm trying so hard to help you that I visibly start shaking my head. I got nothing. And eventually, after a long period of just staring at each other, I just in my mind, I just go, good luck, man. And I look down at my file. And we sat there for like 20 seconds. And after the show, I went up to you. I was like, what line did you forget? What's the matter with you? And you went, you forgot a line. And we went back through the lines. And I thought for sure I was going to save you in this moment. But it was me. I forgot the line. And I had to like write it 100 times in a notebook after that, because that becomes the line that you will forget every time now. So I was like, I ain't ever missing this line again.
That's
Well,
awesome,
and the
man.
line flub you had in that scene too, Brian, where one time you said, you get your team down here and I'll F every one of them. And we're all like,
What?
The line is,
so.
I'll F all of them up.
Yeah.
And I just left out the up one time.
Ah.
Your team here, and I'll F all of them. And you just went, nobody's effing my team.
We all went. Is that so?
Oh my God.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
Okay, so here's my question and all of my make you feel stuff. In the 2 years that we've been away from the show, what have you learned about yourself?
Mm,
Ooh, deep.
That's right.
mm.
Jump in the pool, boys.
I mean, a lot, but I'll say that I've learned that I really need this work that we did together as part of my way of navigating the world. Like I realize how much I miss it, like how much, and not just the performance of the play, but just the work and the engagements and the interactions with, and seeing the impacts on people. I miss that more than anything else, the connection of the work that we did. I've never experienced anything like it before, and I don't know that I ever will again.
Awesome.
I've learned that a lot of the stuff around the war, I thought I had a good hold on. I thought I was learning to heal about it. And when the fall of Afghanistan happened and this show stopped, and the longer I realize just how long ago I was there, I was in Afghanistan in 2010. I've discovered that I shy away from the man that I'm becoming.
Mm.
Not a 19-year-old kid anymore. And sometimes I feel stuck in a 19-year-old voice, in a 19-year-old mentality, and I just have trouble talking about Afghanistan like it's something that happened to me and not something that's happening to me.
Mm.
Mm.
So, and I don't know if there's ever going to be Scott, you and I, and several of us, we got the chance to study with some world renowned acting coaches, and he told you specifically as we were going through this trauma of allowing the war to work through our work, of this is something that you're probably going to have to work on for the rest of your life. And he said that to you, and I remember that vividly because it just felt like it applied to me as well. And I thought that I had a grasp on it. And through just so much that's happened in the last 2 years, you know, it's a scary thing to be locked away in your house for 18 months with your own thoughts, you know.
Yeah.
And I just am committed to not letting the war be who I am, and instead of making it just be something that I did. And now I get to carry those experiences with me and be a fuller actor, a better husband, and a more loving father. That's the goal, at least. I don't know.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Okay. Well, over these last 2 years after the play, you know, not a day goes by where Afghanistan isn't somewhere in my thoughts. The people, the experiences, the the guys. I mean, when I got there in 2004, and I left in 2005, we were still operating with guerrillas. So that was a very, very unique experience. And like, I am so, I'm worried about a lot of those guys and what's going to happen to them and their families. And, you know, but the play, um, you know, it helped give validation to a lot of people, or a group of people that are overlooked in this current ongoing tragedy. Um, and I think spending time with you guys and bringing those stories to life is going to help millions of people, Americans and Afghans alike. And I hope we can find a way to get this out to an Afghan audience and honestly get their feedback. You know, but I think over these last couple of years, you know, we as a group, the people you see and the people you don't see, created something beautiful and something that will heal and change lives. And if the people who are listening to this or watching this have not seen the play in whatever format is out there, then I would urge you to see it. It will change your life, even if it's not something terribly profound where you wind up joining the military or anything. It will change the way you see the world, and I'm glad to be a part of that.
Thank you, brother. How about you, Aim?
I think for me, what I've learned in the last almost 2 years now is, I think I know I'm guilty of this, and so speaking just for myself, I never realized how much I put my self identity in the things that I did and the things I was doing. And when those things disappear, what are you left with? And I think this directly translates back to our play. When, to touch, when what Brian said, what happens when you are not at war, when you're not in Afghanistan, and that's such a huge part of your life, but when that's not there, what are you left with? And for me, with everything that's happened, with Afghanistan, and on a personal note, having everything in my life collapsed, everything in my life collapsed. Everything that I thought was solid and true and unbreakable was destroyed. And what rose for that, and the awareness for me that rose for that, is crystal clear vision on what's really important. And I was really good at berating myself and saying, I put so much worth in this. Why did I do that? And I think maybe that's just the human journey of it. But now, just losing my mom a couple weeks ago, it's like we can't escape the things that happen to us, but what are the lessons that we are learning? And for me, it's just crystal clear on who I am and what really matters, in a very positive way. It just it took all the noise out, and I didn't even realize the noise was there. So
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
it does. And, I just want to say, to you, Lenny, and Brian, and Aim, you all, you came into my life at a time when it was not good, and when I had a story that was trying to find its way into the world, and I had no clue how to do it. And your courage and commitment and just friendship and dedication to this project, put something really beautiful into the world. And, you've already healed a lot of people. You've already informed a lot of people. You've validated voices that were never heard. And it's just getting started. And, I really do believe that what Tracers was to the Vietnam generation, what the things they carried was to the generation, the Vietnam, I believe Last Out will be to the post 9/11 generation. I believe it's our story, and it's the story of, every American, every soldier, every warrior every family member who endured, and civilian, honestly. And you guys gave that. And I'm just so grateful to you for it. I'm grateful for the journey and the ups and the downs. And I just, I want to thank you. And on behalf of all of the people whose lives you touched, you guys are amazing. And you gave a real gift to the world at a time, and you're giving it now when they need it. So thank you very much for being part of it. And I hope that our road is not completed. I hope that we run more races together, and that we continue to find ways to tell stories and heal and connect, and to keep those chapters open, because it's going to be needed. So thank you guys for being on, and thank you for being part of this podcast as we go into Veterans Day. What I'd like to just say to all of you watching and listening is, as we approach Veterans Day, is just to please remember the Afghan people, the promise that we made those left behind. Please remember our veterans and our Gold Star families and our military families who are struggling and hurting right now and trying to find the answers to a very, very hard problem. And I would ask you to please watch this film. If you do anything at Veterans Day and you want to get beyond thank you for your service, if you're a civilian, or if you're a family member of a veteran or active duty, watch this film, because it will help inform and heal. Share it with somebody who needs it. And if you can, and you can go to lastoutfilm.com to do that. We're going to have it there at no charge. We'll be putting the link out. You can go there and enroll now. You can watch the behind the scenes documentary. And finally, if you can, go to theheroesjourney.org, theheroesjourney.org, HEROES, theheroesjourney.org. And any donation will help us overcome warrior trauma that we're dealing with as a result of the Afghan collapse. So thank you so much, Cast of Last Out, for being here. I love you guys. Thanks for a great ride, and thank you all for watching and listening. And until next time, we'll see you on the rooftop.